Capitol Hill to Wall Street. This is Politics and Profits with your host, Rick Amato.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick Amato. It's time for Politics and Profits.
We follow the trends on Capitol Hill that lead to the profits on Wall Street. We expose the hard facts of what your elected officials are doing when you're not looking. And we show you how you can profit from their politics. The American dream is alive and well, and you can be proud to call America your home. And now, it's Rick Amato.
Welcome to Politics and Profits, everybody. Of course, this is the show where we cover money, politics, and current events. And one of those current events which is affecting everybody, regardless of their political stripes, regardless of their ideology, regardless of anything, really. One of those things is stress. Now, when I say stress, of course, we're talking about stress from the pandemic. We're talking about more than that, though. Stress from the constant media barrage of an election year. Media barrage with both political parties trying to hammer home their message. What kind of effect is all of this having on Americans across the country? Joining me at this time, as he often does, longtime guest contributor to Politics and Profits, one of the nation's leading doctors of psychiatry, I should say. Let me welcome Dr. Brian Alman. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Rick. I am always happy to be with you.
And of course, we go back to the One America days as well.
We do.
Let's first of all, before we get into the pandemic stress, what about the politics and the election? You know, you're seeing a lot of uptick in new patients as a result of stress over politics and the election, as I understand.
That is definitely true, that depending on which side of the election you are on, you have a lot of stress about losing and what that would mean in your life, personally, financially, even ideology. So both sides are really very threatened. They're losing sleep, they're overeating, they're drinking more, they're self-medicating. So all of the stress levels on all sides is up, and so are the coping skills, which of course help, but they also are a problem because they build up and cause medical problems.
Now, Brian, what surprises me about that, I could see that if of a politician, of an elected official, or someone who works for an elected official. But you're saying everyday Americans are weighing the consequences and deciding what happens to their lives if one or the other party wins?
Yeah, it's so true, Rick. It's so personal to people with this election. It's a visceral experience. They feel either support or fear, depending on what the media show they're watching. If it's pro in their area, then they're feeling more support and more comfortable, endorphins and happier. But if it's against them and makes them feel afraid, the cortisol, the stress levels, the hormones. So yes, it's a visceral, medical, emotional, mental challenge every single day.
And you can see it on social media where people will post comments that support their belief from either political party. What are you telling clients? As a amateur, as a layman, I sit here and think people are taking this too personal, taking it too close to the vest when I hear these stories.
Right.
What are you thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as a person who's curious about psychology and medicine, because we've had a lot of great discussions before, that people are really worried about their futures, about their kids' futures, their grandkids' futures, because they just see that this election, more than any other election in the history of the country, is going to determine what happens next. So you can't deny it. You can't push it down. You can't pretend it doesn't bother you. You can't minimize it. You can't listen to people who say, don't worry, don't be concerned, because people are upset. They're not sleeping. And like I said, they're doing things to cope, and it's worse than ever. So the first thing I do is I say to them, whatever your biggest stress is, you have to be honest about it. You have to communicate with friends that agree with you, for sure, not friends that are going to cause you more stress. Journal about it, walk, work out, but you have to express what you feel, because if you're not expressing it, You are internalizing it. If you are internalizing it, there's your stomach aches, your headaches. And one of the studies at Kaiser, which you know about, the ACE study, we proved that if people don't deal with their stress, they actually die 12 years earlier. So not only does it ruin your longevity, but your quality of life goes down. So not dealing with stress, not dealing with your fears, your upset feelings for very good reasons, whether it's on one side or the other, you have to be real about what you feel and have to find ways to express it so that you're not internalizing it, because that's going to cause a whole ripple effect of other problems.
And the ways
that's number one.
Okay, and let me ask you, the ways to express it. You mean just talking about it to others? Or?
Right. Yeah, you know, because I know your relationships with people that you work with in your family, and Deacon Jim and all the people that are your friends, that you have to communicate. You have to express how you feel. You want to listen to how they feel, because it might trigger you getting more in touch with what your feelings are. Because basically when you communicate and express it, you facilitate your own ability to find better answers, to see things from a different perspective, to be able to relax more. So even though it seems overly simple, it's even like in the Catholic Church. Confession has been around for a couple of thousand years. It must be effective. It's people expressing and communicating and maybe not even getting too much back. But us, through the pandemic, through the politics, through the economy, we have to express and communicate, because it's one or the other. You're going to repress it and it's going to cause a lot of problems, or you're going to express it and really potentially discover some other ways of dealing with things. And, we're all smarter than we think. We all have better answers inside of ourselves, but we have to get to those answers, which are typically covered up by our fears and worries and all the stress.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing you tell your
right.
clients.
Right.
We're about out of time in this segment.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is hold you over for a few minutes on the
right.
other side of the segment. So hold your answer. We'll come back and get that from you.
Okay.
All right.
I have something specific for you.
All right.
Yeah.
Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA studios, I'll continue with Dr. Brian Alman and handling the stress from politics, the election, and the pandemic right after this. Politics, money, and the pandemic. Those three items have created more stress than my next guest, Dr. Brian Alman, has seen his entire career. And that means a lot, folks. Dr. Brian Alman is one of the leading doctors in America in the areas of stress and how to deal with it. He continues with us. All right, Brian, previously you talked about, number one, you're telling your clients to express their feelings. What's number two?
Exactly, Rick. Whether it's a journal, whether it's with friends, you have to get it out, because if you don't express it, you're repressing it. And if you're repressing it, it's going to cause a lot of medical problems, a lot of reasons to find addictions, to manage it. And it basically doesn't work. So expressing it is number one. The next thing you asked me, okay, a specific technique, an exact technique that I use, and I really think that's very valuable for your guest, Rick, are 3 steps. Where were you 5 years ago as far as dealing with stress in your life? Politics, money, illnesses. There was no pandemic. We never even heard of it. So 5 years ago, where were you? And I want you to take note of that. And I want you to compare that to where you are now. The pandemic, politics, the election, money, the economy. And then the third is I want you to go out 5 years. 5 years from now, where would you love to be politically, financially, the pandemic, ancient history? So I want you to think about 5 years from now, and 5 years ago. And then I want you to have a dialogue with yourself, whether it's in a journal with a friend or after the show or whenever you can. Have a conversation with yourself and people that you care about, and consider, where were you 5 years ago? Where are you now? Where would you love to be in 5 years? And get into a conversation so you can get integrated and you can feel more whole and come up with your own best answers for dealing with these 3 very catastrophic issues for a lot of people, whether it's the politics or the money or the pandemic. 5 years ago now, 5 years from now. Get into a conversation, figure it out, because you will come up with your own best answers when you really open up and you're very accepting and you start expressing these things. You'll be pleasantly surprised with what you come up with.
I like that. I like that approach.
Yep. Simple and direct.
Simple and direct. It's authentic. It's each individual's conclusion. So you talk about politics, the election, profits in the economy. All these are related, though. Politics, the economy, the pandemic stress, right?
Right. They're all connected. In every individual person, all ages, all political persuasions, all cultures, all backgrounds, it's impacting everybody. So it's the first time in the history of the world that we have three really scary, traumatic experiences going on for most of the world, if not the whole world. And it's never happened before. You usually have one stress or maybe a couple of difficulties. You don't have three big ones all at the same time. So this is very unusual. So the bigger the stress, the bigger the problems, the bigger the opportunity for you to grow as a person and figure out answers that will help you through this and your family and your friends. And so being open, being expressive, looking at things 5 years now past, looking at things with different eyes, people will come up with their own best answers. And you're 100% right, Rick. There's really not a public path or a formula what people should do for dealing with their stress. We all have to find our own best answers. And the best techniques help people facilitate their own inner resources.
And let me before we let you go, let me get your take on this. As you said, this is the first time this has happened in history. I saw something that struck me. It said someone who was born in the year 1900, at age 14, the Spanish flu pandemic hit.
True.
At age 18, World War I broke out. At age 29, it was the Great Depression.
Right.
Age 41, the Depression ended, World War II started.
Correct. Correct. But those weren't all at the same time, Rick.
I see. Okay.
Those were cumulative and happened over years, and that's true, and it's very stressful. There's no taking away from that, and we know the medical and the emotional and psychological effects of all of that. None of them are good, but all three like that all at the same time, I would say most people watching your show would have to admit that it's overwhelming.
It's what? I'm sorry?
We have to deal with it in ways that really help. You don't have to stop being negative. You can keep being negative. You just want to add the kinds of techniques we're doing together to add some clarity, some positivity, so people can stay negative and stay worried and stay afraid. That's fine. There's plenty of reasons to keep doing that. Just add communication, expression, seeing yourself 5 years from now, 5 years ago, present, and start adding things that are going to help you find answers that help you cope with, I would say, the most difficult time you ever will go through.
Yeah.
Even for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and let's hope so.
Yes, let's hope so.
All right, Dr. Brian Alman, for our viewers, I didn't mention, some of the biggest names in Hollywood are clients of yours, as well as everyday Americans. We keep those client names confidential, of course. But again, important topics, timely topics, and we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA Studios. Back after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.